Hello, welcome to another video by Help You Excel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a universal search form, and also in the course of this I'm going to show you how custom events work in class objects. So first let me walk you through the end result and show you what's happening. So I've got a simple database here. This form is bound to my customer table. So anything I update here is updating live on the tables. These two sections are unbound to an order table and an order detail table that loads based on the customer that you select. But let's say a customer calls in, they want to place an order. I've got a long list of customers here. There's like 1,000 customers in here. So you don't want to have to scroll through and try to find your right customer. So I've added a find button here. And so you can go here and you'll see it lists their address, city, state, zip, the whole thing. You can search keywords. So if you know they're from Buffalo, type Buffalo, hit enter, and it'll limit it to just your people from Buffalo. If you know their last name is Ames, you can limit it further. And you'll see the order doesn't matter. I can type any order I want. So 14220. Street. I can type any order I want. The little X button is supposed to reset, but it's not doing anything. Got a bug. I'll fix that later. Okay, so I can type sassy. I can type IA. It gives me everybody from Iowa. Areckell. Okay, so any order. Then you click the one you want. Click OK, and you can see it jump me to that person. Now let's say I want to start an order. My item list is equally long. Actually, I think my item list is longer. It's quite long. So I have another button here that opens up, and this actually opens the exact same form as this button, but it's loading in a completely different list of values, and it behaves a little differently. Let me show you that. Okay, so I want this one now. You'll notice there's no OK button. And now when I make a selection, it just automatically makes the selection. Remember back on this one, you had to click your item and then click OK for it to jump down. This one, you just make a selection, automatically jumps you out and then sets your focus to the quantity. It loads in the price for me. Hit save. Oh, I got to do a new order first, and then I can do this. Now I can save. There we go. You want to do another item. You can scroll through if you want. You can search. Well, there must not be anything in that result. I know there will be if I do that. AccuPro 1/8. Okay, so even that, there's still a lot, but you find the one you want. 3/64. There we go. Find the one you want, give it a quantity, adds it to the invoice, or adds it to the order. Okay, so what I want to show you today is how I made one form. You see my whole database only has two forms. So these two buttons are opening the same form. But how I made that form behave so differently based on what's selected. So let me close this. So here's the basic form, just a few controls. Oops, let's not do that. Let's go here. Yeah. Okay, so this form, it's got several properties that lets it behave differently based on how you call the form. So the most important one here, this is what will define what table you search in and what list of options. So when you open the form, you give it a SQL statement. I'm dimensioning a query as a query def object, and then I'm assigning the SQL statement that you passed in, I'm assigning it as its SQL. The reason I do this is if you pass in an invalid SQL statement, this will raise an error. That's why I'm doing on error resume next. And I'm saying if it raised an error, then I'm going to raise an event, so on and so forth. Okay. Also, this form is designed for the SQL that you pass into it to have exactly two fields. Field 1 will be the value that is tied to the list box. Field 2 will be what's displayed. So also by passing my SQL into a query definition, I can check to make sure the field count is right. If the field count is wrong, it's going to raise an event saying invalid number of fields, and also will raise an event called cancel click, which I'll explain a little bit later. So this is how the form figures out what list to display. And then I'd say me.listResult, that's this, dot row source equals whatever that SQL statement was that they passed in. Okay, so all the rest of this is basically just to make sure that everything's valid. And then this part here, search field, that's going to be the name of the field that you're searching within. So when you type a value here, this is the name of the field. Because that name could be different depending on the SQL that you pass in, I'm grabbing the name of the second field. And I know this says 1, but it's base 0. So field 1 is number 0, field 2 is number 1. So this just puts into a property the name of that field. Okay. Then what I do is here on the after update, event, I'm dimensioning a variable, and the search string is nz, the value that you placed in here, comma empty set. And the reason I do that is I don't want to call this function if they've passed in an empty set. And actually what I should do is if it is empty set, then reset it back to the default, which is what this was meant to do too. So let me that's what that button was meant to do. Apparently I just forgot to write that code completely. Okay, so let's go through this again. So basically it's doing a check, make sure that there's a value in here. If there is, it's calling a function called update list row, where you pass into it a search string. Okay, and here's that function. So the way that I accomplish allowing you to type any words in any order is I'm not searching for the entire string all in one chunk. I'm searching for each individual word separately. So what I do is I say search words equals split by space. So that's going to create an array. If there's a space in there, it's going to create an array with each word being a position in the array. Okay, and then I'm checking if is array. I do that because if there's just one word with no spaces, it won't be an array. And then it just jumps down here. If it's an array, it's going to loop through the array for each search word in search words. And then I'm just saying, is this the first time through the loop or the second time? The first time through the loop, SQL where will be empty set. And SQL where becomes me.search field. So that's where we got that search field name when I defined the SQL. Like, double quote, star, and then search word, and then star again, and then double quote, and then in parentheses. So this is saying where the search field is like, and it's doing a basically a fuzzy search. So basically saying the search field has to contain that search word somewhere in the field. It can be anywhere in the field. Okay. If SQL where is not empty, then it just does a concatenation. It equals itself, and then we tack on the keyword and. Okay, if there was only one word, then SQL where is just same thing, but I'm using the search string here. and then new SQL equals me.sql, so that was the SQL that we passed in initially, and then I'm tacking on the keyword where and my SQL where, and then I'm saying me.listResult equals row source, so that's then going to get me my results. Okay, now what I do is on this form, or this list, sorry, I've got two events, on click, on double click. This is where we're going to get into the custom events part of this. Okay, so if you haven't worked with events, any class module, and that includes regular class modules that you define completely, or forms, because forms have a class module. Any class module, you can define custom events. So this class module for my search form has 5 custom events. One for double clicking a selection, and I'm passing to it an argument, which is the ID or the value that they've selected. Clicking the OK button, again, I'm passing to it a value. Cancel, so this is going to be when they click the cancel button. If they single click, it'll pass to it their selection. And then I've got another event called form error. So if there's some sort of error, I can communicate that back to the form that called this, okay? Now what I do is, depending on, like when you click the cancel button, it's just going to raise that event. So you just type the keyword raise event, all one word, cancel click, and that will raise this event. And then other forms, when you call this, can listen for that cancel event, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, here's my button, my OK button. So this is the OK button click event. I dimension a variable. Again, if it's empty, if they haven't made a selection, comma 0. Okay, if ID equals 0, then a selection must be made, and it exits the sub, nothing else happens. If ID is anything but 0, then we're going to raise the on click or the OK click event and pass to it that ID button or ID value, which is going to be the value they've selected in my list box. Okay, here's my reset button. We already did that. Okay, so list result. When you double click the list result, that's this list here. When you double click that, it's going to do a similar kind of thing. It's going to try to get the value that you've selected. If it doesn't equal 0, this time though, we're going to raise the double click event and pass to it the ID. Okay, and then there's also the single click, which would be this one. So this is the single click event for that same list. Same thing, we're getting the ID, except this time we're going to raise the event single click item. And then the form that calls this can respond to these events in different ways. Okay, now let's look at how we use this. Oh, I should hit yes, because I did make a couple changes. Well, we'll just deal with that not working for now. Now let's fix it. Okay, I must have saved in between there, so that's good. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that. Now let's look at what happens here. So at the top of this form, you have to dimension your form variables outside of your button click. And the reason for that is, as soon as this code runs, if I were to do, first of all, you can't dimension inside of here with events, but okay, if you were to do that, then as soon as this code finishes executing, this form loses scope and it will just disappear. Okay, so you have to declare it up in your general declaration section. So when I declare my form private with events, that's important. In order to trigger respond to events, you have to have this keyword. Here's my person finder, and it's an instance of form underscore form search, which is that search form. Private with events again, item finder, and you'll see it's just going to be a different instance of the exact same form. Okay, Now, when you click my Find Item button, that is this one over here, it is setting Item Finder equal to a new instance of that search form. Here's where I'm able to change the caption. I can change label instruction.caption. That is, let me show you what that is. That's this label right here. So it defaults to saying double click to select. You can change it when you call the form. So I'm changing it to single click to select. I'm telling it what my SQL statement is. And I'll show you this view here in just a second. And then I'm telling it to make the OK button invisible. And then I'm making the form visible. Okay, so just by sending to it a few simple parameters, I can change what the list is going to be. I can make my OK button invisible. I can change my instructions. Now let me show you what this view looks like. View item search. This one. Okay. Remember I said my search form wants only 2 columns. Okay, so this query only has 2 columns. Now I do want my customer or my user to be able to search in 2 fields, in the item number and the item field. So I put them both, I mash them together with concatenation. So we got item number and then I just separate them with a space dash space, and then my item, which is my item description, and then I'm going to put the price inside parentheses so they can actually search by price as well. So when we run this should look familiar. This is what that list box shows when you do the item lookup. Okay. I have another view that is basically do the same thing. Okay. 2 columns, but in the second column, this is where the search is going to happen. I'm mashing together last name, first name, street, city, state, and zip. So that will allow the user then to search through any of those fields. But I've only got 2 columns. Remember, this search form relies on there being exactly 2 columns, not more, not less. It also is assuming that your first column is going to be the primary key on whatever your search table is, and it assumes that primary key is going to be a long numeric number. Okay. It's good design practice always for your tables to have an auto number as their primary key. So if you're following good design practice, that should not be a problem. Okay. Let's go back in here. Now this one, the person finder, okay, SQL statement is coming from a different view. Okay. I tell the caption to say find customer. I tell the instruction label to say select from the list and then click OK, and you'll notice I am not disabling the OK button this time. Now, to respond to these events, all you have to do, since we've declared these variables up here as with event, in your object selector here, if you go down to person finder, this side list will show you the different events. Okay, remember on person finder I have them click OK, so I want to do something when they click on the OK button. Okay, so I'm using the OK event for the person finder. Okay, that person finder back here on the search, let's go look at this OK event, OK click event. You see it has this parameter. It's going to pass to me an ID. That's the value that they selected before they clicked OK. And that's going to come in on this event on my customer form. This is on my customer form. Okay. So if the ID doesn't equal 0, then I'm going to jump to that customer. Either way, I'm going to set person finder equal to nothing. That's what makes the search form disappear. And that search form is modal. So if you don't give the user a way to set it equal to nothing, then that search form will stay open and it's going to get in the way. So make sure you remember to do this. Okay. And then if you look at my person finder, I also am responding to the cancel click, and all I'm doing there is making the form disappear, setting equal to nothing. So when they click cancel, nothing happens, it just closes the form. Okay, now if I wanted to respond to form error, I could say message box, there was an error on the form, and error description, set person finder equal to nothing. Okay, so you could do this, or you could log it in a table or whatever. And I haven't really tested that part, but it should work. I don't know. All right. I think we've got enough now to kind of give you an idea. Let's go in here and let's put a stop on this so you can kind of follow along what's going to happen here. So we're going to open our form. I'm going to click on a person, and I'm just going to pick somebody by random. And now when I click OK, okay, so this is the event on that OK button. Okay, so ID equals whatever I selected, number 496. If ID was 0, it would toss an error, and I should, this is where I could raise event form error. So if you wanted to respond to different form errors on your calling form, you could do that, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so now they clicked OK. I'm going to raise the event, passing to it that value. Now it's going to jump back to, now this is my customer form where everything started. Okay, and because that event happened, it's listening. It says, hey, that event was triggered, passes to it my value, 496. Again, if ID doesn't equal 0, then I'm going to call a function in here called goToCustomer. And I didn't go through how this works, but this is just jumping to the customer based on the customer's primary key. Okay, so I don't know if you've done this kind of code before. It's going to set a record set variable equal to a clone of my forms record set. It's going to create a search string, ID equals 496. Find first. So it's going to jump to that customer. It's going to set a bookmark variable equal to that bookmark. It's going to close my clone. And then it's going to say me.bookmark, jump to that same bookmark. Okay, and then this is loading data into those unbound forms, unbound parts of the form that I showed you before. So it's just a function that loads the customer, loads their order history, that kind of thing. Okay, so this gets me back to, this is my listener for that event. They clicked OK, we loaded the customer, and now we want to close the search form. So it sets it equal to nothing. And we've gone to the customer we clicked, I think. Let's check. Let's remember this name this time. Emilio Arnie. So click OK, and there's Emilio Arnie. Now we can start a new order. Let's go here. Let's go. Oh, what is that called? Button find item. This one. Okay. So we're going to click the find item. Okay, we're going to set item finder. And that, again, that's an instance of this form equal to a new instance of the form. Okay, we're going to change the caption. So it says find items instead of find person. We're going to change the caption of the instruction label. We're going to pass to it a SQL statement. And now you'll see my property let for my SQL. It's doing a lot of things. Okay, so we're setting a query definition object equal to a temp query. Okay, we're trying to set the SQL statement that we passed in. We're trying to set it to that query object. If there's no error, great. Okay, we're checking the count of the fields. There are 2, so that's great. My search field is item name. So it's storing that now into a private variable. And now it's setting my row source equal to the SQL that we passed in. Okay. Now we're telling it to make the OK button invisible. Now we're going to make the form visible. Okay, let's go down here to Item Finder, single click. So here's my form. There's everything made in the USA. Yeah, I typed something wrong. We fixed that. Good. Ball bearing. There we go. That's a good one to search for. If you know the item number, you can obviously search by your item number. And it'll jump you right to it rather quickly. Okay. So I single clicked. Okay. It triggered my single click event. It passed to me the value that my customer or my user selected. If it doesn't equal 0, then we're going to set this combo box, that's this combo box, value equal to that ID. And this is a function to load the price into the price field. And then it's going to set focus to the quantity field so that I can users just ready to type in a quantity. Set my item finder equal to nothing. That makes the search field go away. And there you go. Ready to type in a quantity and hit save. So that's a lot packed into one video, but that's how you can use events to make your forms respond in different ways. In fact, let me show you. Let's make this a little different. Let's say we want to use the double clicker. Just show you another way that you could call this. Okay, so now instead of, I could leave this in here because that event won't fire, but instead of the OK button, we want to respond to the double click event. And then we can do this. If ID doesn't equal 0, then if go to person, no, I think it's called go to customer. Yep. Set person find her equal to nothing. I'm just going to move this up to where we've been. Okay, so you'll see this code is doing the same thing as down here, but this time it's responding to the double click event instead of the OK button click event. So again, we're calling the same form, just a few lines of code change, and now this form is going to behave differently. So let's open it up, and now we're going to click find. Oops. OK button is gone. This now says double click to select. And now when I click it, nothing happens. I can't click OK, but if I double click, it jumps me to that person. And you'll see I've got an order from before, so it loads that in there for me. So just by changing a few lines of code, that search form is very reusable. And you could import that into 12 different databases, and it'll work well for you. All right, if you have any questions, as always, you can reach out to me at paul@huxl.com by email. Visit me on my website. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. And if you want to see more like this, subscribe to my channel. Thank you.